All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Math 154. So I like to start our class each day with what I call my whiteboard, as you can see, and then I just have, which week, which lecture we're in here. Obviously, you can tell what day it is. It's the day it is today. So quiz one, which I'm calling a syllabus. I'm also calling it a course intro quiz. Please be aware, maybe one of these answers, maybe two of these answers isn't necessarily in the syllabus, but it's just really about how the course runs, which most people like to call a syllabus quiz. But just because it says syllabus quiz doesn't mean everything is about the syllabus. Hint, wink, nudge. Remember, we talked about a lot of things yesterday, and maybe in those details, or maybe in the course intro notes, that document I shared via email that's also in Canvas, maybe one or two answers is in there. So just so you know. So that's a Canvas quiz. Please make sure that you're paying attention to the instructions. The Canvas quizzes are very, very, very specific with how you have to type your answers. So if I say, write your units, you have to write units. If it's a math question, if I say don't write units, then you don't write units. If I say to answer one word and you answer a sentence, it's going to mark it wrong because it expects you to say Bob, and then you say the answer is Bob, and its little coding blah 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 algorithm and stuff doesn't know to take that. Now, what I tend to do is give partial credit in scenarios like that, but we do say that following instructions is very, very, very important. It's one of the biggest aspects that we try and focus on in this class, paying attention, asking if things make sense, following instructions. So I don't have to give you full credit if you don't follow instructions, even if the answer is, arguably correct. And again, I give lots of partial credit in those scenarios. Occasionally I might give full credit, but it's going to be dependent. So you have two main responsibilities before next class and the class before, I'm sorry, the class after that, as well as some minor responsibilities. The minor responsibilities I say are always read ahead. Every single time between class, you're supposed to be reading ahead. You're supposed to be reading the next section or two in the e-text, and you're supposed to have the next section or two's worth of stuff from the notes to share that I have available in Canvas. And remember, you'll be seeing those while we're going through lectures as well. It's just a good kind of starting point for notes. It's got a lot of the basics, but without greater details, generally speaking. This is just a note on reminding you how to save files on a computer, because I know it's the cell phone age and a lot of our older teenagers are much more proficient with phones versus computers. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows how to do that. And then the other, I would say, minor thing to do before next class is make sure you're practicing with Excel over and over and over and over. You're going to hear me say this many times today, the next class, and then throughout the semester. You do better at things by practicing them. You do them over and over and over. You do a math problem twice. I mean, you got it now, but 2 days later, who knows? You do a math problem 50 times, you're going to know how to handle that problem for the next several years of your life. It's the same as lifting weights. It's the same as anything in life. It's the same as, practicing for anything. So what are your main responsibilities for next class in terms of grades, though? That first quiz, that syllabus quiz, that's going to be due the day of next class, but before midnight. I said everything's always due 11:59 p.m. And then we're going to show you how to build this entire file today. We have 2 hours, and I need to get to it really quickly because it's going to take us almost that full time. So the chapter 0 spreadsheet, if you go in Canvas, it's one of the few things you can see where it says submit chapter 0 spreadsheet here. You will be watching me complete that file today, and then I need you to replicate it as best as you can, and that's what you'll be turning in. I'm not going to give you a 90 or an 85 or a 97 or a 43 on this. It's if you did it, you get 100. If you didn't do it, you get a 0. It's purely effort. I'm going to have some numbers up here. If your numbers don't match mine, that's not what's going to matter. Like my file might say I sold 4 hot dogs and yours might say you sold 7. What will matter is that the formulas that you're putting in Excel are being applied correctly, that the answers from those formulas are correct. That's what the main driving issue is going to be, as well as the charts. Your charts might not look like exactly like what I put up here, but as long as they represent the data you have perfectly, then we're cool. Again, this is an easy assignment. This is basically it's kind of like a discussion board, because normally we'd be in a lab together and I could help you and look over your shoulders and stuff like this while we're talking about it. Well, that's not the case in this Zoom world, unfortunately. But the great thing is, while you may not have me over your shoulder, you have replayability. So if I'm going too fast today and you miss something, catch the replay. If you caught everything but maybe missed one or two details, or just need to hear this little 5-minute bit again, catch the replay. So again, there's strength in that, and you should already be seeing those videos built up. I put the first one on there on Tuesday evening. You'll see this one go up sometime mid-afternoon today, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, something like that. I'm sorry, actually, I'm gonna have a hard time getting these up. It's usually gonna be like 8 o'clock. I'm not thinking straight because I have other tasks to handle. So if you don't see a video earlier in the day, they're generally up no later than 8 p.m. when all my classes are done, including on my Math 154s. Okay, so let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and dive in. If you have a secondary device, another computer, if you're watching this from a phone, if you can go ahead and start trying to build this Excel file while we're doing it today, that is perfect. That's what I would love for you to be able to do. Or maybe you know how to make your Zoom window half your screen and you can make Excel half the screen. I know Zoom displays are funnier than others, than just like a Word file or a Chrome window or anything like that. But if you know how to do that, I do suggest trying to work as we do this. That's what I would do as a student. So that's my suggestion. But again, let's go ahead and dive into everything Excel. All right, so the first thing I want to do is remind everyone how we get to the textbook, how we get to the workbook from the My Math Lab shell. So you go into your respective Math 154 course shell for whatever class you have. And then to get to the e-textbook, you click e-text contents, which is also how we will get to the guided worksheets. We're going to be working on chapter 0 stuff. Start with 0.1, and then over the next this next full week of class, we'll be covering all 3 sections of these. We'll be creating that Excel assignment, that chapter 0 Excel assignment that you're supposed to be submitting to me in Canvas by the due date provided. And yeah, so right here, actually, let's do the worksheets first since it's a little shorter to open. So you go to the e-text, chapter 0, and then the guided worksheets are always at the bottom. Remember, this is how you can open or print these. You can also save them. That way, in case you did not buy the physical book or don't want to, you don't have to. And then when you open it up, it might take a minute to load. A little longer than normal. That's okay. And then here we go. So this is the guided worksheet, guided activity, whatever you want to call it, that you'll see me kind of referencing a couple of times today. And as I may or may have not have said so far, I don't always collect this, but even if I don't collect the chapter 0 one, you 100% absolutely positively should complete it because of the importance of some of these definitions, some of these questions that you can then come back to, like about filling a formula down, what formula was in a specific cell, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how we get to our guided activities, which again, we will be going through that entire chapter's worth. And then to get to the textbook, which you'll see me follow a lot more today, you go to the specific section, and we're going to start with 0.1. And then we hit Explore, and then the textbook will open up. Now, sometimes it might not open the first time. I believe you may have seen me on the intro day. That happened to me. So then you close it and try and open it again. Occasionally, my math lab might be glitching, and it is just not working. It could be your software or hardware. It could be a lot of things, but hopefully we get it resolved. Sometimes the hyperlinks look appropriate. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they work appropriately. Sometimes they don't. I mean, when I say sometimes, I mean generally 95, 98% of the time they're working. So definitions, you can find little videos and stuff. You go between the pages by using these tabs on the left and the right. If you know a specific page you want to go to, you can actually type it in this little screen here that is hidden by my Zoom menus. There's little blips and bulletins and things like that for pointers that we'll be talking about. Anything with a little play button is a video that you can pull up and play. And some of these things are going to be similar to what you'll see me talk about today. So obviously we're not going to watch those. So again, that's how you can get to your textbook, and you can just go from section to section. To get to 0.2, I don't have to close the book, go back to the main My Math page. I can just keep scrolling, and there we go, 0.2. I can keep scrolling, and eventually I'll get to 0.3. All right, so.
Okay, so Excel. Excel. The reason it's called Excel is because it uses cells and it's excellent, right? We can excel with cells. So when you open Excel, if you're using Excel and not any of those other programs I mentioned that you're not supposed to be using, if you're using the downloaded version of Excel and not the online version, which I said you're not supposed to be using because all of those other things have problems and will cause you to lose points on assignments, I guarantee it. This is what Excel will most likely look like. And you may have a couple subtle detail differences based on what version you're on. I think I'm on like the next to most recent version personally. And if you downloaded it, you should be on the most recent, but don't hold me to that. And it might not be anything that looks different here, but it's just a sub menu, might have another option or two. And my computer is chugging really badly right now, so this might be fun. Hopefully no issues. Again, knock on wood. I shouldn't have insulted technology earlier, right? So you can zoom in and out on this. If you have a scroll wheel on your mouse, scrolling up and down takes you to lower cells. You can see the numbers getting higher and higher because I'm scrolling down more and more. If you hold Control down, which is on most of your keyboards, the bottom left button, you can actually zoom in and out when it wants to work. There we go. Nope, don't look at that. So I tried to open that about 45 minutes ago and it literally just opened. Sorry about that. It was just emails. It's nothing, you know, no private information or anything. But so yeah, when your computer's working properly, I'm holding Control and scrolling on my mouse wheel to zoom in and out. There are other ways to do pretty much everything in Excel. If you go into View, that's probably where the zoom is. Yep, so you can zoom in and out that way. But I just like using Control because it's a little quicker for me. So you'll see these letters across the top, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, etc. And if you go far enough right, you'll actually get to letters like A, B, A, C, A, D. So it's not like there's just limited to 26, and these are called columns. So each of these letters, this is a column. So this is the U column, this is the Z column. Z column being the 26th column, the Y column being the 25th column, A column being the first column. Columns are up and down. Think about when you look at one of those fancy buildings with columns on them, whether it's a library, a house, or whatever. Columns are vertical, so that's why our columns are vertical in Excel. Again, columns are vertical. When I'm doing this, this is me highlighting cells. I'm just clicking a cell with my left mouse button and I'm dragging around. I can highlight an entire column or part of a column. I can highlight a section of a row. So if columns are vertical, rows are horizontal and labeled by numbers. I can label several columns and several rows. I said label, I meant to say highlight. Now, when you highlight cells, then you can do other things with them, but let's not get into that yet. So, textbook. Again, what our goal is to ultimately do is to build the spreadsheet that you'll see in this textbook and in the guided worksheets. There are nice little notes here. When you open Excel, it gives you a blank workbook. Note that it says Book 1-Excel at the top. You can think of a workbook as a 3-ring binder that contains worksheets, and you can have other tabs. So note that there is, on the bottom, there's a Sheet tab. Double-click it to rename it. So let's go back to Excel. It says Sheet 1. If I double-click it, I can name it whatever I like. And I believe the name we want to give it is Sales Order Form. And then you can hit Enter, and there you go. So now it's just got a more specific name, kind of like tabs on a web browser generally have the website's name or something along the lines. Instead of just saying Book 1, well, what's Book 1? It's going to be a sales order form. So they also say you can move to a different worksheet by clicking on the Sheet tab. So just like you can make new tabs in a web browser, if I hit this button, I would have another tab and I can go to another website. As you can see, I'm a fan of multiple tabs. This is all my work stuff, my YouTube uploads, my Google Drive. Got to go through 50 different things to open up Zoom and my math lab and your course. It's set in Canvas. So if we hit the plus symbol next to that, you get a new tab. So it's, for Chrome, this is in the top right section generally. For Excel, it's bottom left. Sorry about my floating start menu at the bottom. So now we've got another sheet, and I can make another and another and another and another, but I'm not going to. So now if I type something here, just type a 5 in cell D6. So cells are labeled based on the column, then the number. Sorry, the column, then the row, or the letter, and then the number. So if I just have a 5 there, if I go to sheet 2, it's not there. Also, I've zoomed in a little on this sheet, but this is the default size. So everything, oops, go away. Sorry, my video menu popped up. Where was I? I got distracted. So again, everything, blah, blah, blah. That's not going to be in the other one. If I zoom in super close on this one, the other one is still zoomed out as it was. All right. The undo button is my favorite friend. So let's say I typed in a 56 here, I hit enter and I go, oh no, I wasn't supposed to type that. Sure, I can just go back to it and delete it. But if you're dealing with Excel formulas, sometimes it'll act a little wonky and you can't just do it super easy. You might be making another mistake. So this right here is your undo button. This is my best friend. And if you hover over it, it'll probably tell you what the last thing it's going to undo. Undo typing 56 in cell D3. Also, you can see that it says you can use Control and Z to undo something. So this is me hitting undo. And I might go, well, wait, no, it was fine. It was fine. So I can hit redo. And that's Control Y as well. So now I'm not over that undo. I can hit Control Z, undo, Control Y, redo. And you can undo several steps. So I type a 45 here, a 69 here, a 111 here. I can undo, 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 undo. I believe there is an ultimate limit to how many times you can undo, but it's probably a very large number, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but that's okay. Nobody says I have to. All right, next page. Across the top of the spreadsheet is the ribbon, which consists of menus or tabs whose names are given at the very top, things like File, Home, Insert Page Layout, Formulas, Data, Review, View, etc., etc., etc. The figure below displays the Home tab, which is where we'll be in a lot of the time. There's only a few tabs that we really need to use that much. It's mainly Home, Insert, maybe Formulas if you really wanted to go that way, and then Charts when you go to create a chart. So for now, note that the Home menu is subdivided into groups: clipboard, font, alignment, number, style, cells, editing, etc., etc. Clicking on the little arrow next to a group name opens a dialog box and gives a full range of options beyond just the few shortcuts shown. So what's that talking about? It's saying, all right, here's all the different things in the ribbon. And these are the little drop-down arrows it was mentioning. So right now, there's a paint bucket icon with highlighter yellow. So on this cell D3, if I click it, like I said, my computer's chugging for some reason, and then it highlights it. I could have several cells activated and highlighted, and I can paint them that way. If I hit the drop-down menu though, I can select a whole bunch of different colors. Maybe I want that cell to be puke green. Maybe I want it to be this weird tangerine orange color. Maybe I want it to be some baby blue color. So you can have that cell be baby blue. I could have this cell be just like charcoal black. I could make these cells over here lime green kinda. You get the idea. You have all sorts of drop-down menus for other things. Like there's this cache symbol, which formats things to currency, American currency, if you just click the dollar symbol. So like if I have a 5 here, that's just a 5. It has no sense of denomination, scale, whatever. Is it 5 feet? Is it 5 bowling balls? Is it $5? Well, if I hit this button, it makes it dollars. And it even puts it to 2 decimal places because naturally our money's dollars and cents. So 5.00, $5.00. But maybe our currency isn't the American system. Maybe it's the pound. So there we go, 5 pounds. Or maybe it's the euro. Or maybe it's the yen. And then there's even more options if you go in here, but I'm not going to show that. Maybe you needed this to be a percent instead. Now you might say, well, wait a second, you had a 5 typed, why did it turn into 500%? Because 1 is 100%. 1 as a decimal is 100%. So 5 as a decimal value is 500%. If I wanted it to display 5%, I'd have to type 0.05. Then I can activate that cell, click the percent, and that'll make it 5%. You can change the amount of decimals that are displayed. So maybe even though this is a whole percent, maybe you just want to see it written, wrong one, as 5.0% or 5.00%, or you get the idea. You can make more decimals displayed, or you can make less decimals displayed with these 2 buttons. And then there's just a drop-down menu for a whole bunch of different options, whether you want to display percent, fraction, time, currency. Some of these we've already talked about. Let's see how many times I can hit undo. That was a lot of times. See, it goes pretty far. Which, by the way, I had a memo I wanted to show here. I've talked about this, but I wanted to make sure you saw it written down. Cells are labeled by the column, then the row. I even wrote number there instead of row. Columns are labeled by the column, then the row, so it goes letter number. So cell A1 is the very top left. Cell B5 would be the second column and the 5th row. See, second column, 5th row. This would be cell B5. When you click on a random cell, you might say, oh, well, I've got to figure out where this is, and if I'm really far over, like over here, I got to trace this out. Well, actually, if you just look along the top, the column that it's in is kind of highlighted. Not highlighted, but it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Emphasized. It's shaded, and so is the row. So you can pretty easily see that that's cell T15, cell H9, cell I25. Use your eyes. Also, look right here. Look right here. That shows you the cell reference just directly. F7, M6, E5, E13, P26. Every time I click somewhere else, watch this P26 change to A1 when I click right here. A1. Watch it change to K2. Watch it change to B7. So if you can't trace these back to their roots, you can see it directly labeled right here. All right, so they told us to change it to sales order form. We already did that. And again, when we say A1 or when we say B7 or we say F2 or whatever, those are what we call cell references. We're referencing the specific cell's location. So a cell reference is when we say A2 or B5 or G9 or Z150, whatever. All right, so at this point, it's going to be a little more difficult for me to keep going back and forth. So I want to have my book on half the screen and Excel on the other half of the screen. And I can do it like this. Boom. Okay. Then the fun is trying to get the textbook to look proper. It's always a little of a challenge, but that's okay. Come on, I know you want to work for me. I think that's good enough. All right, so that was weird. That was supposed to be moving with that too. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to mess with this and make it angry and waste time. So click in cell B2, we're going to start building this file finally. So click in cell B2 and type the word item. Cell B2, zoom in just a little bit, and we're going to type the word item. And if you look down here, and I know it's not very large right now, but this is what we're ultimately trying to build, but we're going to follow along the text to do so. So next, so then they tell us to hit enter. So notice when I type item, and then this is me hitting enter, it goes down. If I type in the word item and then hit the tab button, it goes right. So enter makes things go down, tab makes things go right. So that's the next memo I have right here. Enter makes you go down in Excel, tab makes you go right. If you don't ever use that, that's okay. You can just use your mouse to select as you've already seen me do 10,000 times. Okay. So what else are we doing? We're just typing item and that's it. End of the day. No, I'm kidding. Next, we're going to type in the items that you sell, which are soda, water, popcorn, cookie, hot dog. So they're saying for us to type those below items. So we typed in item, we hit enter, and it put us here. So then we type soda, enter, water, enter, popcorn, enter. Sorry if my keyboard's really loud, by the way. Cookie, enter, hot dog. Also, remember how I was talking about the control button can zoom in and out? Control can change a lot of features when you're using your mouse or keyboard. So when I hit enter, I go down. I'm going to hold control down now and hit enter and watch what happens. That's weird. It's not working. Or is it tab? It's supposed to be. Okay, my computer's being goofy. It's supposed to go up or left when you use control. Clearly, my technology's having a mildly bad day, but it doesn't matter. No one really uses that to go left or up. So you don't need to see it demonstrated. Life's fun. Okay, so after we made that column of items, what do they say to do? They say to go to cell C2. So we're in cell C2, and we're going to type in quantity, and then we're going to hit tab to go right. So tab to go right. I'm sorry, it's not control, it's shift. That's what it was. So this is one of the instances where shift actually does it. So if I'm down here, if I hit shift and enter, that was my boo-boo. I'm just used to control doing everything. If you hold shift and enter, it goes up. If you hold shift and tab, it goes left. There we go. All right, so we're on quantity, we hit tab to go right. Then they say to type in cost per item. Then they say to go right and type in cost. So we were here in the textbook. That's how far we've made it. Now, if you look very carefully, and again, I can't zoom in, unfortunately, so hopefully you can either see that, at least see that, look where it says cost per item right here. You can actually see all of the cost per item. Look on what I have, though, it says cost per it. So how do I make it display? Because before I typed cost, it says cost per item, but then there's this like blank space because it's kind of overrunning into the next cell. It's not actually in the cell, it's just visually displayed over it. But when you type something in this cell, it says, well, I got to show that. That takes priority. So check this out. This is really helpful. If you take your mouse and you put it on the line between two columns, so this line splitting the C and D, and I don't mean down here, not here, it has to be between the letters. In fact, watch my mouse change. See how it looks like this thick white plus sign? We're going to talk about this shortly. But it looks like a thick white plus sign pretty much everywhere except here and here, which is very important. But so if I'm just here, this is not demonstrating that I can widen the columns, but when I put it over here, it's now this thin vertical black line with two arrows pointing left and right. That's demonstrating that we can widen the columns. So if I do it this one, that's not really helpful because that's widening or thinning, if you will, the quantity section. So we need to do this one between D and E. Let's make it a little wider. Boom. Now we can see cost per item much nicer. Now we're ready to enter prices. Admittedly, the textbook and the workbook, I think there's one price that doesn't agree. Let's just go with what we see on my screen currently, though. We can change it later if we feel necessary. If we feel it's necessary. Okay, so in cell D3, type in a 1. So D3. So we're typing the cost per single item of these 5 different things we can purchase. So a soda is $1, so we're going to type 1. Enter. Then they say in cell D4, type 1.25. So water is $1.25. That's kind of annoying to me that water costs more than a soda. But, I mean, what are you going to do? Not the point of the problem, right? And in fact, what I have on my guided activities is that sodas are $2.50 and waters are $1.75. But let's just do what we see for now. Then they say to type in the rest of the prices here of 1.5, so $1.50 for popcorn. 0.5, now watch this. If I just type 0.5, I don't actually have to type the 0. Excel will make it for me. And then 2. And I think the hot dogs on my worksheet are $2.75. Again, don't worry about that the difference in these values too much. It's not the point of the problem. Now, these are not displayed as prices, though. These are actually prices, and we really like things in Excel to be well displayed. That is one of the critical components throughout the semester, to make sure they're well labeled. So, how do we do that? We're going to change the format to currency. That's what this purple memo over here says that we already talked about. Now, I'm going to have to maximize this again for you to see it. So, if I'm on this cell, click the dollar and it makes it $1. And I could do this individually for all 5 of them. But imagine if you had 10,000 different items you were selling and you had to click these 10,000 times. You're going to be super annoyed. So check this out. Remember I said you can highlight cells? You can highlight a whole different range of cells. You can highlight, I undo it too many times. You can highlight all 5 of these, then hit the currency button. One and done. Beautiful. So again, you can do them individually, or you can highlight those and just highlight these 5 because you can't guarantee that this is a cost. You can't guarantee that this is a cost or a dollar amount. Now the quantity is definitely not a dollar amount. The cost will be, but the Excel formulas we'll use will automatically make that happen, as you'll see. So again, just highlight these 5 for now, which you know should be dollars, and then make it $1. Okay, that worked, perfect. I was a little scared that I was gonna have to flip through the book again. All right, so where are we? We were here. Press enter again so that you're in cell D9, or just click to get in cell D9. Click subtotal, sorry, type subtotal. So they want us here. So they want a blank space, subtotal. Why do they want a blank space? That was their decision. Doesn't have to be there, but it's fine. Hit enter. Next, type in tax at 8%. And this is something that we're going to change later to make it a little more universal. But for now, let's just type tax, then the at symbol, which is shift and 2, and then 8%. The percent symbol is shift and 5. And then we'll type in total. So what does it look like the point of this is? We've got some store somewhere, or a little pop-up restaurant at a concert venue or something like that, where we're selling soda, water, popcorns, cookies, and hot dogs to people. And we're trying to figure out how many we sold in a day or a week or to one customer, something like that. And we're trying to keep a record of this. So we're going to end up typing how many of these things we sell. We want to have a total cost of the things we sell of each of these. So for instance, if we sold 5 sodas at $1 per, that would be a total cost before tax and everything of $5. But the thing is, most states, 45 of the 50 states, I believe, have sales tax. So this particular state is paying 8% sales tax. So you would have that calculated here after you have a subtotal, which is just adding up all these costs. And then this total would be adding up your subtotal and your tax. And if any of those concepts of how we get a subtotal or how we get tax are, if they're rusty to you, those are things that you should know coming in here. Those are arithmetic and very, very basic algebra concepts. But you'll see me write a couple quick formulas soon, or just scroll them on the screen. You're almost done. Not really. You can finish with a quick formatting choice. Make the words in row 2 all bold by highlighting the cells B2 to E2. So we want these to be bolded. We want these specific cells to be bolded to give them a little visual flair. So we highlight them. We can do the one at a time if we really wanted, but I'm just going to highlight them all. Now again, I need to maximize this. And if you look up here, there's a B button, B for bold. Or you can hit Control and B. So look, if I hit Control B now, it unbolds. If I hit Control B, bold, unbold, bold. Or I can click, click. So again, that's just giving it a little visual flair. Sorry for the there. I try not to too much, but it happens. Okay, I think that's all the format stuff for that page. Moving on. All right, this right here. I'm going to show you my abbreviated version of these notes in a second. Remember I talked about the mouse appearance when you're in Excel? Now, because I don't have Excel activated, it just looks like regular mouse when I click over here. Most of the time, it looks like what we call a thick white plus sign. Thick white plus sign. Come on. So we're here. So most of the time, it looks like a thick white plus sign. See that thick white plus sign. This is when your mouse cursor looks like this, that's how you highlight or activate cells. So to activate a cell means that's the one you're typing in. So if I click here, anything I type or do is going to be referencing cell B9. If I click here, it would be typing in cell E13. So when it looks like a thick white plus sign, you click to make that cell activate and then type in it. Or you can click and drag to highlight cells. Now, typing in that instance doesn't work the same. I generally don't recommend doing that. Highlighting is usually to, like we said, bold things, color them, move things as well. We'll talk about that in a second. So thick white plus sign. It looks like this almost everywhere. The only three places it doesn't really look like that is if you go between the letters or numbers. See, if you go between the numbers like this, you can make them taller. You go between the letters like this, you can make them wider or narrower. So that's one way it can look different. Another way it looks different is if you go around the green border of your active cell. So again, the green shows you what cell is active. Even when you highlight stuff, so now all those cells are active. Notice that the mouse cursor looks different. When I go around this, it looks like a weather vane. Come on, highlight all of that, please, and thank you. There we go. So when I go around the green section of an active cell or active cells, it looks like a weather vane. That changes what your mouse does drastically. So if I just keep highlighting things, I mean, I'm just clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging, but notice I'm always going to another cell. Or I can click and drag the insides of a cell I'm already in. So I'm not really doing anything besides just highlighting. But if I have some cells or a single cell, let's just highlight cookie. So this is now the active cell. If I click on the border of that cell, with the exception of the very bottom right, notice that the change we'll talk about. If I now click there, instead of highlighting, so I'm not highlighting a whole bunch of different things as I move my mouse cursor, I'm actually just moving that cell. So maybe you accidentally typed cookie here at the beginning for some random reason, and you go, oh, that was supposed to be over here. Instead of deleting it and typing it, you can just make it the active cell. So again, I can't just do that. You have to click it first to make it active, so the green border's around it. Then you put your mouse over anywhere on the border except the bottom right, click, hold, and you can move it. I can highlight a bunch of them and click them and move them. I can move all of this stuff. Highlight, then move. Practice this stuff, practice this stuff, practice this stuff. I can't say it enough. You have to practice. Okay, well, what's up with when you have an active cell, the bottom right, little dot there? Why is that dot there? That's what we call the fill handle. So that's called the fill handle. So when you have an active cell, if you put your mouse cursor over that tiny little spot, it becomes a thin black plus sign. So when you're over the fill handle, and I'll have that typed up shortly, it becomes a thin black plus sign. So if you highlight that, you can't, I'm sorry, if you click and drag, you can only go down or right initially. You can actually do an entire region if you have a row or column highlighted. So when I did that, all the things I had typed over here just disappeared. Let me undo and show you what I did again. So I'm taking this cell, which is blank, I'm putting my mouse over the fill handle, I'm clicking and I'm dragging. I'm gonna drag over just to where it says subtotal and watch what happens when I let go of my mouse. Click. It disappeared. What happened here? So there's nothing in this cell. By grabbing the fill handle and moving it somewhere else, I'm telling Excel that I want the rest of the cells to be blank because this one's blank, I want the rest to be blank. That's not something we usually do, but it works. So let me undo that. Check this out. Let me just type the number 7 right here. Random number 7, hit enter. Go back and highlight the cell, activate the cell, that is. Grab the fill handle and drag it down. Drag it down more. And look, it even says 7 right there. So it's just going to make all those cells say 7 because that's what that cell said. This cell says hot dog. Let me activate the cell, grab the fill handle, and then I got more hot dogs. So that's what the fill handle does. It copy pastes things when you just have a number or a word, kind of. But we generally use it for Excel formulas. Now, remember when I had the 7 there and I grabbed the fill handle and I filled it down, it just says 7s? Check this out though. Control, remember I said control very often changes how things work. If I grab the fill handle, hit and hold control, and even look very carefully, you might notice the top right of my cursor has an extra little plus sign. Look just above where my mouse is, little plus sign, now it's gone. I'm holding control, I'm letting go. I'm holding control, I'm letting go. So when I drag this time and I hold control, when I let go, it actually increments the numbers. That's really helpful for dates. That's really helpful if you need to write the numbers, say 1 through 10,000, because you could just write the number 1. Get rid of all these. And then I could drag it down, 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 hold control. And now I just typed the numbers 1 through 320 without even lifting a finger practically. I mean, I had to lift my finger off control, but that was the only thing I really had to do. So control changes how the fill works. Changes how a lot of things work. All right. So thick white plus sign is how you activate a cell or highlight cells. A weather vane is when you're over an active cell, and that's how you move cells. The thin black plus sign is when you're over the fill handle of an active cell, and that's how you fill in formulas, which is our entire purpose of Excel, is to fill formulas. These 3 lines right here. Remember how I just made the numbers 1 through almost 400 in the snap of a finger? That's the point of Excel, what we call batch processing, one of the many points of Excel, as well as what we call what-if analysis, where we can just change things and change things and change things and see how they play out. So you got a job and your boss gives you 10,000 different sets of dimensions, and he wants you to have a formula applied to those dimensions, whatever might be relevant to your job. And he says he wants it on his desk in an hour. And you go, I can't do 10,000 equations in an hour. And then an hour later, you're fired. And it sucks, right? Well, if you had known how to use Excel, you could have said, Bob's your boss. Bob, I'll have that to you in 3 minutes. because he's going to give you the spreadsheet with the dimensions. So you just type a formula once, you use the fill handle to apply it to all 10,000 times, and your day is done. You're not fired, you get a bonus. Batch processing, very excellent. Okay, let's continue. So now you can see we want to make some colors, put some colors to this, give it a little more visual flair. So we want to highlight the quantity cells. So that's where thick white plus sign, just click and drag. And then we're going to make them a yellow color. Then we're going to make these kind of a green as well as these three. So I got to maximize that. So highlight those, and we're going to make them a yellow. It wasn't quite a highlighter yellow. So remember, paint bucket icon, the little drop-down menu to change the color. That's what I did. Again, highlight the 5 cells. Hit the drop-down menu to select the color. Boom, done. Highlight these 5 cells. Drop-down menu, select the color. It looked more like that, I think. Boom. Highlight these 3 cells, same thing, but check it out. The paint bucket, it remembers the last thing you used as well as all the currencies, percents, all that stuff. So instead of doing the drop-down menu and picking the green again, I can just hit this and it already does it for us. Notice that these yellow and green sections, they're a solid yellow and a solid green. If you look really carefully at this, there's like a border around them as well as borders between each cell. I don't see that here. So the next thing we want to do is put borders in there. So let's show you how you can do that. Highlight the 5 cells, just those 5 again. This is your border option. Now, currently it's only on bottom border, so it only put a border on the bottom of that one cell. So let's undo. Let's do the drop-down menu, and you want the all borders option. And there you go, there are your borders. There's a lot of different options. Pick whatever's relevant, but it's usually all borders. I use all borders constantly in Excel. Do the same thing here. Now again, since it was the last thing we clicked, I don't have to do the drop-down menu. Just click that. Highlight these 3 cells, click. That's it. All right, now let's get into entering formulas. Again, the 2 main points of Excel for us are using formulas to make Excel do the math for us and batch processing. So if I have, let's say I sold, this is me not looking at the book, I sold 7 sodas. I know that the total cost was $7. And I could go in and format it as currency, but I'm not worried about that for now. But if I sold 5 sodas, I got to go and do the math and say, oh, wait, 5 times 1 is 5, so that's $5. Or if I sold 100 sodas, that would be $100. I keep having to type numbers in both. I don't want to have to do that. I want Excel to do half of that for me. I just want to type the number in the soda here. I sold 5 sodas, and then I want Excel to tell me the cost without me doing any math personally. So that's where this stuff comes in. So we're going to use a formula. How do you find the total cost of sodas? It's the number of sodas you buy, or someone else bought, times the cost per soda, the cost per item. This is a very general formula that we'll be using all semester long. We got a lot of very basic formulas that we'll be introducing over the next week and a half that will be used all semester long that you're never allowed to forget, and they would not be on any kind of formula sheet for you. It's just quantity, the number of them, times the cost per item. So you take the number of sodas times the cost per soda, the number of waters times the cost per water. You're just multiplying these 2 numbers. So if I had 2 waters, I'd take 2 times 1.25 and it'd be 2.5. But again, I don't want to do the math. I want Excel to do it for me. So how do we make formulas in Excel? How do we make Excel do the math? You have to start out with an equal symbol. Excel formulas start with an equal sign. So if you want Excel to do calculations for you, the very first thing you type in a cell is equals. And then the blah, blah, blah is just whatever the formula would be. Now with the equals, we're going to be using cell references. I'm not in this cell. Let's say we sold let me find out how many it's going to be. 1. All right, so we're going to end up selling 1 soda that day, or maybe 1 soda, 1 customer. So in the cost, because I want Excel to do 1 times 1, which would be 1, I don't just type 1 times 1. It leaves it as 1 times 1. If I type 4 times 7, it leaves it as 4 times 7. But if I go equals 4 times 7, it's going to do the calculation for me and tells me it's 28. Now, what I typed in is still in the what we call the formula bar. This is what I typed in. I typed equals 4 times 7. But watch what happens when I hit enter. It displays the actual answer. It doesn't display the formula. If you double click it, it will display what we typed as a formula, and we can then even enter it. Now 4 times 5. Why is my 5 not working? There we go. And it's 20. Or I can double click to edit it and say it's 4 minus 5, -1. All right, so we have 1 soda and it's $1 per soda, so that should be equals 1 times 1, right? And we can see that we're spending $1 on all our sodas, or they spent $1 on all our sodas. But watch what happens if I change the quantity to 5. The cost doesn't update, but that's what we have Excel for. We want Excel to go ahead and automatically change it. So instead of typing equals 1 times 1, we need to say, hey, Excel, take whatever is in this cell and multiply it by whatever is in this cell. We have to use cell references. So again, cells are things like A5, D4, Q3000. So this right here is cell C3. There we go, sorry. So this right here is cell C3, C3, C3. This right here is cell D3, D3, D3. So we're going to tell Excel to multiply those. So in the cost section, we type our equals. C3, and look what happens when I type C3. C, nothing's happened yet, but put your eyes right here. 3. It puts a little blue box around it saying, hey, you mean this one? So if I did it wrong, if I typed cell C5, I go, wait, nope, that's not the right one. It's supposed to be cell C3. Okay, thank you, Excel. You're very helpful. Times, which is shift and 8, that's your multiplication symbol. And then we want cell D3. So I'm going to type D, and watch this cell when I type 3. Red border, you mean this one. So it's going to tell us to multiply whatever's in these 2 boxes. And as I update numbers, it will update what the output is. And input is what goes in, which was the numbers in the blue and red boxes, and output is what comes out, which is what you'll see when I hit enter. And look at that. It knows because this was a currency, it should even format the answer as a currency, which is brilliant. So now if I type that we have sold 5 sodas, look at the cost, it's $5. If I sold 100 sodas, there's a cost of $100. If I sold somehow 3.5 sodas, that's a sales of $3.50 before tax. But it was 1, so let's leave it at 1. Okay. So that's what you can see them saying here. That cell, which was E3, now we didn't type the E3, we type this, equals C3 times D3. You don't have to type it though. Let me start from scratch, clear. Activate this cell. Watch what happens if I type C3 times D3. C3 times D3, and I hit enter. Oh no, it didn't work. What did I do wrong? That doesn't make sense. These are things that you should be saying to yourself. Why does it just say C3 times D3? Why doesn't it say $1? What did I forget? The equals. I can even just double click and quickly edit it. Oops. I'm getting a little careless with my mouse. Put the equals in front, boom. Now it does the math. check out what happens. All right, well, how much are we spending on water? Well, I don't know the quantity yet. First of all, if a cell is blank, Excel basically thinks of it as a 0. So if I do my formula here, now that should be C4 times D4. So I go equals C4 times D4. The blue and the red show me the boxes, and I go, yep, that's right. But because we didn't sell any waters, the cost is nothing. This little dash means nothing, 0. It's another way of displaying 0, or there wasn't enough information to do a calculation. I don't have to use typing though. Check this. This is what I was about to say earlier. I can use my mouse. So I go equals. I do have to type the equals. Instead of typing cell C3, I can click it. You still get that blue border, but because you clicked it, it's, I don't know, I guess it just moves around it to really make sure, hey, are you sure? Now I still have to type my multiplication symbol, and then I can click this cell. Hey, you mean this one? Yes. And look, by using clicks instead of typing the C3 and D3, everything displayed perfectly. I hit enter, I get the same answer. For this one, I could do the same. I can type equals, click the cell, times, click the cell. And I could do that for all 5 of these if I wanted, but I'm not gonna. Because what if there were 10,000 of them? I don't want to do that 10,000 times. So here's the beauty of the fill handle. And I'm going to go ahead and put some numbers over here. I want to skip around just a touch. Let's get the numbers right. I don't know why the book does it this way. It's a little silly, but it's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's changed. It did not used to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But no matter. No matter. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's make Excel figure out what these formulas are supposed to be in these 4 boxes. That's where the fill handle comes in. So remember, this one was supposed to be C4 times D4. Activate the cell where you typed your formula. So make sure it's activated. Put your mouse over the fill handle so it looks like the thin black plus sign. Not the border. If I do this, I move it. I don't want to move it. I want to grab the fill handle. Click. I'm still holding the click, left mouse button, and drag it down. Now you can drag it and apply it to a whole bunch of different spots, or you can just do the next one. Let's just do the next one for now. I'm gonna let go, and look at that. 2 times $1.25 is definitely $2.50. If I double click, or if I just look up here, you can see that Excel has used its computer brain, and it said, well, since you drag this formula down a row, you probably want this formula to be applied to the numbers in the next row. And that's exactly what we wanted, so that's awesome. So I can hit enter. I can make this one active, grab the fill handle, drag down, and there we go. I get the next one. I can do it again, and I can do it again. Or what I could do from the beginning is, when I just had the first one, I can click and hold the fill handle. I'm still holding, I'm still holding, I'm still holding, drag to all 5 spots, 4 extra spots, whatever you want to say, let go, and it applies the formula all at once. That's why I was saying, if Bob's boss or my boss, whatever the name situation was, this is probably why my computer is stalling, because it needs to restart. It had an update. Sorry about that. So when I clicked and dragged, it applied the formula to all of those. If I did that to 10,000 different rows, I would have 10,000 different sets of data completed within a matter of less than a minute. And that's how you go to your boss, Bob, and say, I'm done in 3 minutes, and you go home for the rest of the day. Versus your other buddy who's working hard for an hour and then gets fired. Okay. So again, have a formula typed. If you want to apply that to the next set of rows, you're going to grab the fill handle and drag it down. There's going to be times when we need to fill a formula to the right. Now, this is not going to make any sense because we're not applying this whole bunch of things. So just, why are there's all $1? Don't worry about it. When you do it in a sensible way, you get sensible answers. You can double click on them to make sure that the cell is right. The blue and the red highlight the boxes and say, hey, you mean these two? Is that the ones we're supposed to multiply? Why, yes, indeed, it is. You can hit enter to get out of that. Check this out. When I'm in an active formula, so I'm in the typing, if I click over here, or I click over here, sometimes it'll act a little goofy. And of course, it's not going to do it to me right now, but that's okay. Let's act like it did something goofy. That's what the undo button is for. All right, we already talked about most of this stuff. Just a couple random definitions, which you can write down in your guided worksheets. We talked about inputs and outputs already. Inputs are the numbers that are typed. Outputs are things that formulas apply to. Variables are the quantities you give them, the specific inputs. Constants are things that don't change, like the 8% or the cost per item. And the cost per item, you could call that a parameter. I'm not going to give you test questions on definitions. It's nice to know them, but you can survive in this course without knowing exactly what those mean, quite honestly. So we've already done all this stuff. We already talked about the filling the formulas. I already showed you, but this is the textbook discussion of it as well. So if you need more, read that. Remember, you're supposed to be working on guided worksheets for this. So the guided worksheets, you see a lot of the same information here. These look about the same, don't they? We typed that in that box. Question 1, which is right here. What formula is entered in cell E3? That was where we typed something in here, and that was the equals C3 times D3. How do you fill this formula down? Grab the fill handle and drag. I'm not going to answer all of those questions for you, but please complete those on your own. As I said, we will be having discussion boards on those. I'm going to think over the weekend how much of a discussion board I want for this one, but for now I'm leaving it open because of the quiz and I want you focusing on building this. But I still suggest answering, especially for this first chapter, every single question in this guided activity. Please, for your sake. Even if I don't make it an assignment, do it for your sake. And that is the first section. All right. I think we have just enough time to cover what we need to in the second section, just to fill out these last few details. Let's get the subtotal, the tax, and the total. A subtotal is just the sum of everything. You add up the 5 costs for soda, water, popcorn, cookie, and hot dog. There's a built-in Excel function to do that. It's called sum. Now you could just go equals and add those 5 cells, C5 plus D5 plus E5 plus F5 plus G5 or whatever they were. Or you could use the built-in Excel function called sum. Sum, so equals sum. You open a parentheses. You would type or click the first cell that you want to add. Then you type a colon. Then you type or click the last cell that you want to add. Or you can drag. There's all different ways to do this. But this is the nomenclature for doing an Excel function. You type in equals, then a word or abbreviation, whatever it is for what you're trying to do. Then the first and the last cell being used go in parentheses. And there's different Excel functions that are set up differently. That's the format for most of the ones we'll see. So in the subtotal box, this is where I want to add these 5 numbers. So I need to click it and type in equals, because I want Excel to add up the 1, the 250, the 450, the 2, and the 10, in case the next day the waters and popcorns and cookie quantities changes. So equals, sum. And when you start typing your function, it even says, hey, do you mean any of these? So you could do like a sum product. You could type product if that's what we were trying to do, which is not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to do a sum. Open a parentheses. Now I want to be adding these 5 cells, which are E3 through E7. I think I said letters instead earlier. That was just because I was trying to think 3 different things at once. So sorry for that earlier flow. E3 through E7. So I type E3. The upper and lower case doesn't matter. So that says the first one. Then a colon. Now look, when I typed E3, it said, hey, you mean this one? Yes, I did. Colon. Now let me type the last one, which is where the 10 is, and that's E7. So E7. And now it's actually going to highlight all the ones that we're adding. So you mean to add all of these? Yes, I do, Excel. Thank you. Close your parentheses, hit enter, and that answer should make sense. That is the sum of those 5 numbers. Now check this out. If I change the number of hot dogs to 10, when I hit enter, I haven't hit enter yet, the cost will change to $20 and the subtotal will change to $30. Boom. Wasn't that a lot easier than you doing all that yourself? If I change the popcorns to 17, whatever the math comes to, it'll change the total cost of popcorn and the subtotal. This is one of the many beauties of Excel. How do we calculate sales tax? Sales tax is the sales tax rate as a percent or decimal. Excel can actually use it as a percent. If you're doing classic math, you need it as a decimal though, times the cost of the items. Sorry, I don't want to display that next line yet. Here we go. Sales tax equals sales tax rate times cost of items. So we'll need an equals, then we'll need to have the sales tax rate typed out since we don't have a cell for it. We'll change that later. And then we'll multiply it by the cost of the items, which is the subtotal. So we're going to type equals. The sales tax rate, which is the 8%, I can type 0.08, or since it's Excel, I can just leave it as 8%, because I don't have that in a cell somewhere. This cell does not say 8%. This is a label. Times, and then the tax is based on the subtotal, so we click or type the cell with the subtotal and hit enter. So we can see that our tax is $1.60 based on 8% sales tax. And then the total is just the sum of the subtotal and the tax. So I can just go equals. Now I could go sum, open parentheses, and then E9 colon E10. That would work, 2160. But since it's just two things, I'd probably just go equals and then say click cell E9 plus cell E10. Same answer. So sum is just a quicker way to add a whole bunch of things. If it's just two or three, I'd just use the plus sign personally, but that's me. Going back to the subtotal, let me clear that. Instead of typing everything, let's use the mouse sum. I still have to type equals, I still have to type sum, I still have to open a parentheses. But I can use my mouse and actually just click, hold, and drag and highlight all the ones I want to add. So I'm clicking and holding, and then I'm going to drag to highlight the 5 that I want to add. And look at what happens. I just pointed at the screen like you can see me. Silly me. Look at what happens in the sum formula. Watch, it says E3, E3 to E4, E3 to E5. As I highlight more cells, it changes them. Now the cool thing is when you use the mouse to do this, you don't actually have to type the end parentheses. I can just hit enter, but it's only when you're using the mouse. The keyboard you have to. Still get the $20, the tax is still correct, the total is still correct. There are 5 primary built-in functions that we will use throughout this course. Honestly, the last one, we don't really, but it's got its uses. Sum, average, max, min, and count. Please do not abbreviate average as AVG. You have to spell it out or it won't use it correctly. So let me say I just want to know what's the average quantity of an item we sold. So this random cell, I can type equals, the word average, open a parentheses, highlight these 5 cells, hit enter. And it says the average quantity sold was 3. So if you added 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 and divided by 5, that would be the average. Okay, very last thing we're going to do with the last couple minutes we have. Yes, perfect. This is exactly where I wanted to end. Is I don't like, and the textbook ultimately doesn't like, that they fixed the tax rate at 8%. So I had to type 8% here. I would much rather that 8% be in a cell somewhere so I can use it as a cell reference. That way, if I want to go to another state where the sales tax is only 5%, or go to a state where the sales tax is maybe 0%, like Oregon or Alaska or the other 3, I can't think of off the top of my head, not that it matters, Delaware is one of them. 3 out of 5 ain't bad. So if I want to change the state, I have to keep changing it here. So now we're in some state where it's 4%. But then I also have to change the label. So that's tedious. So let me undo. They want us to put the tax rate over in cell G9 and H9. So let's maximize. So over in cell G9, let's write tax rate. And then in H9, let's change this to a 5% state. and hit enter. Now where it says tax at 8%, let me erase that and change it to just tax. Or even more specifically, sales tax. I much prefer that phrasing, but that's me. Now it still says $1.60 even though I said the tax rate's 5%. Why is that? If you double click the formula, it says 8% in the formula. So you need to reference the cell where it says 5%, not the cell where it says tax rate, the cell where it says 5%. So instead of doing 8% times E9, let's leave the equals. We want to take the tax rate cell, so I can just click it or type H9, times, and then click the subtotal or type it cell E9. And now our sales tax is only $1 because we have a lower tax rate. If I change this cell back to, if I change it to 8%, look at that, our sales tax goes back to $1.60. If I type this as 0%, it says there is no sales tax because we're in Oregon and happy on the West Coast. So it's just $20. If you have some outrageous sales tax of maybe we're at a restaurant and it's 12%, because that's typical, $2.40. So this is a much better setup because it gives us more parameters to play with. So I can say, all right, well, let's make this a little more realistic. I sold 100 popcorns this day. I sold 45 cookies this day. We had a great deal in hot dogs, so we sold 800 hot dogs. We sold 450 sodas, and we sold 1 water. Now, I did this intentionally. Look at how some of these numbers now look like hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. That's because we're zoomed in too much, or you can either zoom out by control and mouse wheel or using the zoom under view. And sometimes even that zooming in or out might not be enough. See, some of those still aren't fixing. So when that doesn't work, you can widen your column. So take your mouse between E and F, just widen your column, and boom, now you can actually see all the numbers. This is a little more realistic for a hot dog vendor at a concert place. Having 2,000, 2,500, whatever, worth of data.
Like I said, when I said earlier we were almost done, that was a lie. I just have to parse to the next section because I couldn't record everything at once.
Here's where we left off, and I may have, the tax rate number may be a little different. I was playing with a whole bunch of these. Like we said, during class, it was originally something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember that the numbers here may not agree in the workbook. The prices of each item, each individual item might not agree with what it says in the workbook, but the workbook questions are generally more about what did you type in this cell and what did you get afterwards. So don't take that part as the most important aspect, just these numbers being exact. It was more about being able to enter them, formatting the colors appropriately, formatting the cell types appropriately, all that stuff. All right, so let me get my textbook back. Let's do this. There. Let's see if that'll be good. Okay. So what we want to do is on the second tab, see they point out to go to the second tab, the purple arrow. And you can have more than 2 tabs. You can have 3 or 4 or 5. You just got to hit the plus sign. You can always right click on the tab if you wanted to delete it. You can double click on a tab if you want to rename it. Remember, all these could be important items for later. And what we want to do is we want to fill out all the information seen here, which it's not super massive on your screen, but if you have the textbook in front of you or the worksheets in front of you, you can see them a little better. And unfortunately, if I zoom in on this, it's going to mess up the borders of that page. So let's go to sheet 2 on our Excel file. I can zoom in a little in that one. I need to see about that far. That looks pretty good. So in cell, I believe B2, we want to type revenue per item per concert, a double per. The idea of what the word per means, we're going to get into very heavily in this course. It's a very simple definition, but it plays an important role all semester. So revenue per item per concert. Then in the row below that, in row 3, we want to go over to column C using our mouse or tab or enter, however we want to do it. Remember, shift can help you move left or up. Just hitting enter or tab makes you go right or down. So this will be concert 1, tab, concert 2, tab, concert 3. And then tab, totals. Now when I hit enter, because I kept tabbing over and over and over and over, when I hit enter, it brings me back to the first column where I was typing. It's kind of a cool feature if you're doing things with patterns. But if you look in this, the next thing I really want to focus on is the labels of soda, water, popcorn, etc., which are in column B, if you can see that carefully. And I'm sorry if your vision is not perfect. Believe me, I feel for you. Mine is most definitely not perfect. I just can't really zoom in on this anymore and have everything look proper. Soda. Good thing is you see me build it in front of your eyes, so a non-issue, I hope. Cookie, hot dog. And down here, totals. All right, so next up, we want to fill these out as numbers. Now, I'm only going to type in the numbers in the blue cells. All of these orange cells in this vertical column F, those are totals. We're going to use a formula to get that. And then same down here in this row 10, these are totals, so we're going to use a formula to get that. So there'll be 2 formulas in here, but most of this is just typing in numbers. So let's see, we got $56 for the soda. Actually, let me do it this way. 56, then tab, 63, tab, 53. You don't have to do it in my order, then enter. It just means I'm going to do all the sodas, then all the waters, then all the popcorns, etc. 30.75, tab, 45, tab, 48.75, enter. Popcorn, 25.50, tab, that's a 30, tab, and then a 18, almost look like a 13, enter. Again, tab and enter are not mandatory, use your mouse if you prefer. Then the cookie prices are 36, I'll hit tab, 49, tab, 44.50. Now I can type the 44.50 or just the 44.5. It won't actually matter because of the decimal placement. Then hot dog, 68, tab, 74, tab, and 54. So those are all the numbers that I need to enter. But there's a lot more going on with this than what you really see. There's a lot of coloring. For instance, the revenue per item per concert, that's a green color. So let's go to the cell it's in. And watch what happens. I'm gonna maximize this for a second. Watch what happens if I just click the cell where I typed revenue per item per concert. Then I go to back to home, the paint bucket, the drop down to make it that kind of green color. It only paints that one. So what you might want to do is grab all of these and then hit the paint bucket icon. And that just makes it a little better. Now you might say, oh, well, this looks a little weird. It's kind of left shifted. Maybe if I hit that, well, no, that didn't work. Maybe if I do that, no, that didn't work. Let's go back to the left one. You can use these to change your alignments and make it just look a little prettier, a little more centered. Because the centering option didn't quite work because it centers it to this cell. But as you saw when I did that, it actually moves it left because it's gonna put as much to the left of the cell as to the right of it. So we don't like that for this particular one. I just use the left and right alignments to manually push it or pull it in a direction and make it look similar. That's also bolded, so we're gonna hit the bold, and that looks pretty good. Next up, the concert labels along with their totals at the bottom. Those are kind of a reddish pinkish color. I'm not perfect with color names, so don't judge me there. So let's highlight those 3, and then let's switch our, see if I click the paint bucket, it's gonna make them that green again. We gotta do the drop down arrow and find that pinkish color, probably about there. Now it's also the totals down here, so let's highlight those 3, and I can just click the paint bucket icon this time. Then the names of these, along with their totals, are all kind of a yellowish color, not highlighter yellow, maybe more like that. We'll go with that. So then do the same thing for these. highlight. You can use the drop-down menu, or since I've already used that color, I just used that color, that is to say, and hit paint. All these numbers right here are a bluish color, not too deep of a blue, so that you can still see everything. You got a pretty good variety. That looks about right. But there's still a few more things that aren't quite right with this. All of these are gridded. So I could have done that when I was doing the individual colors and used the border and selected all borders. I could have done those separately, and these separately, and these separately, and these separately. Oops, wrong button. And then these separately. I could have done it that way, or I could have done it in a few less clicks. I could highlight this entire region, then these three, and then these three. Now, is there anything that says the word totals doesn't need a border around it? No, if you're making this up on your own, remember the point of me teaching you this stuff is not just to learn for whatever's good in this class, it's to take something from this and use it for your life, or maybe in a job later. If this is just for your life, the labeling is just for you, the emphasis on the colors and the borders and the shading and things. So maybe you want the totals box to have that border around it. So me, I kind of like it there. Me, I also don't like the uneven symmetry, so I'd have that have a border, and I'd probably have a border around this as well. I'm going to put one border somewhere. I'm probably going to border everything. But again, that's not what I'm grading on for this particular file. You can completely mimic the file we're creating together, or you can do one or two things that are just slightly different. Because if I see you doing slightly different things and trying other things, it means you're experimenting. And in experimenting, you probably did something wrong, and then you did it right. And how do we learn from Excel? We do it wrong, then we do it right. All right, so again, I'm not really worried about the extra borders here, so I'm gonna leave them. But there is an extra border here, and there was one more color there, and it's kind of tough to honestly tell what it is. It kind of looks like a gray. And again, not really grading on that aspect. And it might look like a darker gray, but that's because they had that cell activated. No, they don't actually have that activated, so it is a darker gray. That's fine. That's fine. So, totals. What do you think we're going to do to get a total across if you got Soto for concert 1, 56, 63 for 2, and then 53 for 3? I feel like that means we're going to add them. Now, with only 2 or 3 things, you could just go this cell plus this cell plus this cell. You don't really have to use a sum function when it's just 2 or 3 cells you're adding. However, it's a good habit to have, so I'll do it anyways. Now let's see if this is going to be right. Maybe I'm doing this right, maybe I'm doing it wrong. Sum, open parentheses. Remember, you can type or click. I prefer clicking. So I click and hold the soda price here. And I'm going to move it right across. Well, that's weird. It didn't put these cells in here. That's because I didn't do equals. So let's go. Equals sum, open parentheses. Now when I click, other things are happening, and I'm still holding my mouse button down. And I can drag, and it'll show a range of cells, C4 to E4 over there. That's when I want to add. Now I can hit enter, and you can see the total is 172. But at this point, I want to point out that something still doesn't look the same as in this chart over here. Our numbers are not formatted to currency, whereas theirs are. So I could go ahead and fill this formula down and then apply currency to all cells. But remember, if you apply the currency to the cells here and then the formula uses those, it'll automatically assume it's currency. So I promise this will be the last time. Before I do the formula, let's highlight all of these and change their format to currency or accounting. There we go. So now when I do that formula, it will automatically put the cash symbol, the dollar symbol here for totals. So again, equals, sum, open parentheses, I'll type it this time. C4, so typing C4, colon, don't forget the colon, and then I want to go to E4, and then I have to close my parentheses. You have got to learn this syntax. It's nothing super complicated, but if you don't practice it, even though it's not super complicated, you're not going to learn it. It's not going to stick. Enter. Oh no, that looks terrible. Well, that's because the cell isn't wide enough. We're using all of these things that we were taught last time. So we go up here between the letters. You'll see the mouse change, click and hold, and drag it right just to make it a little wider. Now we can see the value. Now, instead of typing that formula 4 more times, let us just activate the cell where I typed the formula, hover over the fill handle, and then we can drag it down to the other 4 cells and then let go. And it will take that formula, which was originally adding these 3 cells, and because we're dragging it down a row and then another row and then another row, Excel thinks, hey, you probably want the cell references to move as well. And in this instance, we do. Spoilers, we don't always. We'll teach you how to handle that later, though. Now, look what happened. Because I had double-clicked in that cell, funky things are happening. As I click my mouse somewhere trying to get out of it, it's changing the formula. So to get out of it, you have to hit Enter. It'll give you an error probably. This is usually what it does to me. Do you want to accept the correction? Sure, it looks ugly, but let's accept it. Nope, that was weird. And again, I'm doing all this intentionally. Eventually you get out of that, and it gives you a dash here because it was a nonsense formula. Oh no, I'm starting to have a panic attack. What do I do? What do I do? No. Goose Raba, we calm down. We hit the undo button. That's our friend. That's our best friend. All right, I hit undo one too many times earlier, so I still want this to be bordered, and I wanted it to be gray. There we go. Now the totals down here, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be a sum, but we're not adding up across a row. We're not adding up the 3 individual concerts for the item. We're adding up all the different items for a single concert. So that's how we can tell what we want to be adding up. If the total's over here, you're probably adding up the numbers to the left of it. If the total's here under a bunch of numbers, you're probably adding up all the vertical numbers. So we will go, and I'll do this on the first try correctly, equals sum, and we definitely want the sum this time. We don't want to have to do 4 or 5 additions. Open parentheses. I'm going to use my mouse. Click the first cell, hold. I'm still holding. Drag it down to all 5. Let go. You can close your parentheses, but the nice thing about the mouse is you can actually skip it. Now again, these cells are a little too narrow, so I just need to come up here and widen them. And I'm probably going to have to widen the rest, so let me go ahead and take that initiative. Now I can activate the cell where I just typed that formula, and we can fill it across. We can fill it to the right. So we're going to grab our fill handle with the cell activated. I'm holding my mouse down, drag it right, and we're going to add up not just for the 3 concerts, but for the total of the 3 concerts. And if all the numbers were in place correctly, that should be 695.50, which agrees with what we have on our worksheet. So that's nice. So not too bad. You might notice there's one minor difference, and I just caught this, that the revenue per concert actually goes all the way across. So let's make that one green as well. Same green, there we go. Let's take the border off of that one. So I'm gonna hit no border. I'm just fixing up something. Oops. And then all borders. Move the font right a little bit. There we go. All right. Yeah, right a little more. I'm just trying to mimic it as best as I can. Oops, I'm on the wrong cell. There we go. There we go. Now it looks good. Okay, next page. So now that we have a chart of information, so a whole bunch of different concerts, a whole bunch of different items, and I know these aren't a whole bunch, but I'm saying we could have, this could be all the concerts for like 10 years a company's been around, and they probably don't just sell 5 items at its concert, they probably have dozens, if not hundreds of items over time, especially since people will rotate out items. So you'd have, if you're looking at concerts for the past 10 years, you've probably got brands from 5, 6, 7 years ago that you no longer sell, but would still be in this table of information. You just have zeros for them for all the more recent concerts. Okay. So you are now ready to insert a chart. Now I am here to remind you that in your Excel homeworks, quite often you will need to use recommended charts. I'm not going to be doing that today. That's not how these are set up. Remember, this is a very different type of Excel situation. We're learning from the ground up. So when you highlight a bunch of numbers and go to Insert, in your first homework, you'll be using the recommended charts, and probably the first one that pops up. I'm saying probably, I'm not saying definitely, I'm saying probably. And then you'd hit OK, and then you do some things from there. We're doing it a little different though. We're going to use these over here for the most part, which are not necessarily recommended, but you get a lot of the same features. And again, if you do those on a homework, if it says to use a recommended one, it will deduct points. Okay, pull out just a little. There we go, zoom back. So we're going to highlight the cell range B3 through E4 and then click on the Insert tab. So B3 through E4. Here's B3, and we're going up to E4. Now this is E3 over here. To highlight through E4, we do that. So one more time. Click and hold to make that cell active or to highlight, but I haven't let go, so it's not active quite yet. So I can move around and highlight a different region. So I want to highlight these. I'm not highlighting everything. Please notice I'm not highlighting everything. I'm just highlighting the concert labels, the soda label, and the values for those individual concerts. So we're not studying water, popcorn, cookies, or hot dogs here. Just the soda across 3 concerts, and our goal is to make a chart that looks similar to this. So then click on the Insert tab. So we're on Insert now. And then it says to click on the column chart command, and that chart should appear. So column chart is right here. Columns are these verticals. Now you might say, here's column chart, but that says Insert Statistics chart. This also kind of looks like a column, but it says combo chart. So this is just our standard column chart. The other 2 that are popular that we'll use are these. Well, 3, excuse me. Pie charts, we'll do one of those today. Scatter charts, we'll do a lot of these at the end of the semester. And lines, I like to say line graphs because it's a little more mathematical, but it's still a line chart, I guess. So we'll do some of these kind of in the middle 2/3 of the semester, roughly. So bar chart. And you get a few different options. We want a vertical one because that's what it looked like in the textbook. Horizontal is perfectly fine, but we want to make it look like the textbook. And you got a couple of different options. This one's stacked. These 2 are stacked, excuse me, which we don't have enough information for a stacked chart. We'll get to that later. So we're definitely using this one. And look at that. That looks pretty similar. Let's see if I can get this. There we go. That looks pretty similar to the one over here. Now, what you might notice is the height of the lowest and highest is a little different. This is going in increments of 10 from 0 because it's a dash up to 70. This is going just from 48 to 64 because Excel decided that was a good window. There are ways to change that window. That's not what I'm going to focus on for today. We'll come back to that another day. But because we had soda highlighted, it made the title soda. Because we had these 3 concert names highlighted, it gives the concert names down here. I'm going to do this one more time and I'm going to do it wrong. So I did it right first. Now I'm going to do it wrong. Let me show you what looks different about this. Instead of highlighting all 8 of these cells, so this was the correct one, highlighting the labels and the numbers. Some people will just highlight the numbers and then they'll go to Insert, the bar chart, and this looks very similar. Look at how similar that looks. But it doesn't say soda at the top, it says chart title at the top. It doesn't say concert 1, 2, and 3, it says 1, 2, and 3. These are not labels. This is not telling me what they are. And when you do that in your homework, guess what? It's wrong. When you do that on your project, guess what? It's wrong. Your charts have to be well labeled. Title, columns, rows, whatever. Everything has to be well labeled. So that's why it was not a great idea just to highlight the numbers. We wanted to highlight the appropriate labels as well. All right, so we saw how to do it the right way. Focus on that aspect. Now, sometimes you might want to highlight this section over here and then maybe this section. But when you go to click somewhere else, the first clicked area goes away. Well, guess what? If you hold Control down, you can get both highlighted. That's going to be important for later. So again, check this out. I'm not holding Control. I am not holding Control at first. That's important. Highlight the first region. Now I've let go of my mouse. I'm not holding my mouse down anymore. Now I'm going to hit Control and hold it down. So I'm holding Control. Now I can highlight another region and then let go. So again, I've let go of my mouse at this point. And you can highlight several different regions everywhere as long as you keep holding Control down. I'm still holding Control. Once you let go of Control, I've let go of Control. Now if I go to highlight somewhere else, watch, all those highlights are going to go away. It starts fresh. Remember, Control changes how Excel works. So when you need to highlight separate regions, Control is the name of the game. All right, so we got that first chart done. Charting tips. Click on a chart to make it active and then use the Chart Tools, Designs tabs, Add Chart Element menu to add titles, change the legend, format the axes, anything like that. So again, click on a chart to make it active, then use the Chart Tools, Designs tab. Let's see if we can find that. And I have to move something that you probably can't see. So we're on, oops, sorry, active. Then Chart Tools is right here, and then Design. And this is how we can add chart elements like axes. So primary horizontal or primary vertical, see how that changes something, whether it has the numbers or not. The axis titles, again, primary horizontal or primary vertical. So if your homework asks you to do axes, this might be important, hint, wink, nudge. Chart title, which ours already had originally, but you can make another one. And again, I actually can't see what that chart title says because of Zoom, but it's there because I have a menu again that you can't see. Data labels, this will be important for later today. We'll show you all about that. Legends, trend line options. This is going to be important for later in the semester. So again, if you have a chart activated, a new menu will pop up here, Chart Tools, Design and Format. You can actually go to 5 or 6 different pre-selected designs if you want the colors and patterns to look a little different. That might be in the homework. So if I wanted to say design 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I would click this one to make it look like that instead. There's quick layout options as well, which might not be relevant for us, but you know, play with things, try them out. You never know what you might find and like. So we already talked about this basically, that sometimes Excel does not put the horizontal labels in there or any labels in there. So you have to do that by going manually into Chart Tools, Design, and then select Data. To make a chart the size of a whole sheet, use the Move Chart command button in the Chart Tools Design. So Design, and then Move Chart. So again, something that might be helpful for you later. So where do you want this? Okay, well, right now I've got it in sheet 2, but I want it to be in the first one. Then you could move it to the first one as well. So let's hit OK. And now it's over in the other one. I don't actually want it to be there. So, oh, the undo does not work for that. That's okay. So we can just go back to Design. We can go back to Move Chart, and let's put it where it belongs, back in sheet 2. Okay. Now what we want to do is create this horizontal chart. So they say in this purple box, create this chart by highlighting ranges B3 through E8, B3 through E8, and then use the stacked bar option. And obviously this time we want it to be horizontal. So we're going to highlight B3 through E8. So B3 is here. So we're going to click it once and hold up to E8. So up over to column E and then down to row 8, and then we can let go. Now it's important that I did not highlight the totals column. That is important. We just want the individuals because this is trying to paint the individual categories as kind of a summing up over the 3 concerts. So like Hot Dog 1, you can see there was just under $200 of revenue from the 3 concerts. Here was Concert 1's portion, Concert 2 portion, and Concert 3. Now, sure, we can actually see the literal number of $172 here, but sometimes a picture's worth 1,000 words. So we're going to insert a stacked bar chart. So let's go Insert, back to the bar chart section. We want the horizontal ones. This is not stacked. That's clustered. This is stacked. Now there's a stacked where it's all set to be the same width and it's more of a percentage. Honestly, we're never going to use that one. This is the one. This is the way. So let's see. It gave us good labels for the concerts. It gave us good labels for the hot dog, cookie, popcorn, water, and soda because we had those things highlighted. But it didn't know what to call the chart title because there wasn't anything in this box right here. It probably would have called that the title otherwise. Maybe, maybe not. So what title do they say to give it? Concert revenue. So we can double click where the title is. That's the easiest one. The axes titles are more of a pain in the butt to do. That's where you have to go through the design, add chart element, all that stuff. So we just want this to say concert revenue. It may have been plural, but I'm not worried about that. And then we can click out of it. So let's see if that looks pretty good in comparison to what the book has. Let's close that. These little submenus pull up sometimes when you go to do things like that, changing titles, changing axes titles, anything like that. Okay, so the colors are different. If you needed to change the colors, I bet you could do that through all of those options. Again, not the point of this, so I'm not going to worry about it. But in terms of widths and everything, labeling, everything looks really excellent. So we can visually see that hot dogs earn the most revenue out of everything. Popcorn earned the least revenue out of everything across all these concerts. So maybe as a vendor, we look at this information for, say, 50 concerts, and we notice that the popcorn is way, way down here, almost insignificant in comparison to the rest. And maybe we say, well, you know, our overhead is kind of high on popcorn. We've got this machine that takes up all this space. We could probably put another machine in there that would earn us a lot more money. So maybe let's get rid of our lowest selling item and let's bring in something new that people would be interested in. Now, again, you can see it with the numbers, but when you're doing presentations and stuff, people love charts. People love charts. All right, now let's make a pie chart. Now, if we do a budget, you will be doing a pie chart for that budget as your project. I can guarantee that. It has to be well labeled. So this would be like your different categories of expenses in your personal life. So we're going to create a pie chart now. This one in particular, maybe a little different color and everything, but well labeled as you see here. So you need to highlight 2 regions. This is what I was alluding to earlier with the control and highlighting different regions that are not touching. B4 through B8, so B4 through B8 are right here, and then F4 through F8. So we're going to use the titles of the items and the totals. We don't want to highlight everything. We don't want to have individual concerts and the totals. That would mess up a pie chart really, really badly. And there's a question in your guided worksheets that alludes to that. Remember, even though I'm not asking you to submit your guided worksheets, and I'm not going to ask for a discussion board on it either, it is still important to you to complete the guided worksheets for chapter 0 because, again, it might help you prep for all this Excel stuff. You can't be lazy with this. If you're lazy, you're not going to learn, and you're going to earn bad grades, and you're going to have a bad time. This is for you. Do that work. Put in the time, especially since we don't have Excel homeworks right now and my math lab homeworks right now and quizzes and discussion boards. We're still setting things up. I'm taking it very easy on you right now. So do that. It's very little amount of work at the beginning of the semester to do. Okay, so we want to highlight the labels and the numbers, but when I let go and click, oh no, I can't highlight both at once. What do? I don't go and get upset. I remember that my teacher said control, take control. Highlight the first region, you can let go, hold control down, I'll highlight the second region, let go of control. Does the button sequence have to go exactly like that? Maybe, maybe not. Play around with it, try things out, do things wrong, learn. because there's sometimes I can hit control first, there's sometimes I can't hit control first. You have to figure it out. Like I said, you'll do things wrong. I do things wrong all the time. And then we do them right, ultimately. All right, so now that we have the separate regions, and they say it's Command on a Mac, by the way. I know I mentioned that at some point, but there's the reminder. So we're going to go to Insert a Pie Chart. So let's maximize. Let's insert the pie chart. Not the three-dimensional one, not the donut one, not this like pulley looking system where I don't even know what the heck that is. This simple one. And there we go. Chart title, yay, that's very specific. So let's move this into appropriate window. So it doesn't look exactly like this. That says item total, so on the title, let's double click. Close formatting options if it gets in the way, and change it to item totals. Don't hit enter because that'll give you more space like that. Just click away. And you'll notice that these are well labeled because I had those labels set up appropriately. These would just say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 if these were not highlighted. If I only highlighted the totals, these would just say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let me show you. Make another one. Highlight just the numbers. Insert. Pie chart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not well labeled, losing points on homework, losing points on a project. Don't do that. Highlight labels too. But there's other things labeled in here. We have numbers. So the pie chart gives us a visual representation of, hey, the soda or whatever this blue thing is, which is actually hot dogs. Soda's a little darker of a blue and it's tougher to see because of the small size, but this right here is the hot dog, and if you hover, it even says that. The dark blue is the soda, the yellow is the cookie, the orangish is water, the gray is popcorn. So I can, again, visually see popcorn sales kind of low. Maybe we take out popcorn. And even when you hover, it will tell you those percentages, but we want it to tell us the percentages without hovering. So that's what we're talking about, going to Chart Tool Design tab, Add Chart Element, then Add Title and Data Labels. So again, Chart Tools Design, Add Chart Element, Data Labels. Design, Add Chart Element, Data Labels. Now you get to choose where they're located. So do you want them on the outside? Do you want them on the inside? Do you want them centered? None, well, definitely not that one. Data call out, best fit. Well, I don't think the one on the textbook looked like this. So maybe we go with best fit. That's about what it looks like. You might say center, and that's close, but the one for popcorn looks not perfect. So I'm gonna go best fit. This is just personal choice. But uh-oh, those are the specific dollar amounts. Look at the textbook. It wants them labeled as percentages. You know why we do pie charts? To think of things as percentages, not to see the actual amounts, but to think of them as a relationship to everything else. This is the biggest slice of the pie, so that did the best. I can even see it as a percentage. It's 28% of our gross income, if you will. Popcorn, visually smallest, 10%, definitely smallest. So how do we change these? Well, they tell us there. We're going to check the percentage box and uncheck the value box under more data label options. So going to the same set of menus. That. And mute somebody. Right, back on track. Chart tools, design, add chart element. Back to the data labels, but more options. Now, when I click more options, you're going to see a submenu on the right side of the screen pop up. Click. Now, sometimes this menu is not the right menu, and it's just a weird Excel glitch that I have happen maybe 10 to 20% of the time. It's really based on where you've previously clicked. But if that happens, then just close it and do it again, and it will pop up appropriately. So they said to unclick value. So you see how this says 196 and 172? Watch what happens when I unclick it. It disappears, and there's that little issue I mentioned because I took away everything, so I need to close it and do it again. Sorry, I had to undo, see, because I undid the value first. So we want to click the percentage first to make it easier, then unclick the value. And again, I do some of these things wrong intentionally. Sometimes I don't. That was not intentional, but it's fine because that's how we learn, right? I just showed that. So we're going to click percentage first, and it looks a little ugly. Then we can unclick value, and we don't have that mess where this thing changes. But it was to go under label options. I just couldn't remember that specific thing, and it was under this. So there we go. Now at that point, maybe we wanted to change it to center, and we certainly could do that. Instead of best fit, we can click right here, center. That still doesn't look great. Inside end, I'd probably still stick with best fit. And that was my dog barking. Okay. People often forget to highlight both regions. This is something I already alluded to earlier, and instead just highlight F4 through F8, the numbers, giving the pie chart shown here. We showed you this earlier. With no labels, to add labels, something we've discussed previously, click on the Select Data command button in the Chart Tools Design tab. So when you're under Design, you can see right here, it'll say Select Data. Then edit the horizontal category, Axis Labels. So Excel will open this new submenu in which you can enter the names, and you can actually click and drag as well. So you can enter the range B4 through B8 by clicking in the empty box below. And it might not be clicking, you might have to type. Again, things kind of vary from program to program, or from version to version, I should say. I know there's an Excel version that you can't click and drag, and I know there's one that you can. By clicking in the empty box below, Axis Label range, and then dragging over B4 to B8 in the spreadsheet. All right, so let's try that out. So let's go back to doing this wrong. So we only have these 5 things highlighted. We insert our pie chart that will not look good. And again, I had to store this to memory. So we go to specifically the Select Data command in the Chart Tools Design. So when we have this open, again, I have got this menu that hides things I have to move. Here we go. Here's Select Data. And then edit the horizontal category axis label, which is over here. We're going to edit. And then axis label range, we want to do B4 through B8. So B4 colon B8, B4 colon B8, and hit OK. And that didn't work, so we try again. We go to Select Data, we go to Edit, there we go. So this is the one where you can click and hold. So I just click them instead of typing them, hit Enter, hit OK, and now you can see everything's good. So that first thing I did where I just tried to type B4 through B8 didn't quite work. So we hit OK. Let's show you one more time in case you missed it. So we have that activated. We select our data. We go to Edit. And then we just click and hold and let go. We hit OK. And now everything is well labeled. So that's one way you can fix things on your horizontal axis. And again, this could be relevant to homework. So please, please come back to these videos. It will only help you. Why is it not letting me go to the next page now? This thing is weird sometimes. Technology. Caution. And this is something some of you may have seen already. More is not necessarily better. Remember the old adage, keep it simple, silly. If you've heard a different version of that, that's not the one we'll use in class. The following is an example of a really bad chart created by highlighting everything, adding labels you cannot read, and formatting with, quote, garish colors in this kind of rainbow spherical pattern thing going on.
And this is the part that I said I was going to skip just in the interest of time. Just watching a video and building this nonsense. It's cool, but we are pretty close to time, so there we are.
Maybe just one of them, but it's just not a great idea to do things that way. All right, so there's one last thing I want to do, and we're actually going to be done. I want to go to that chapter 0 spreadsheet, the guided worksheet for y'all. Remember, you've got definition areas. You can write definitions here. You'll have actual questions. Questions 1 through 8. What formula did you enter in the cell that you've built in your Excel file? Don't forget you're saving these and you're going to send them to me in Canvas. Do not email me your chapter 0 Excel files. Again, do not email them. They should be submitted in Canvas. None of these questions are super, super crazy. Again, you're not emailing me this work. This is for your own good. What is the next part I wanted to get to? You'll notice some of this stuff we didn't talk about extremely in class, but we did mention that there are the 5 primary functions we use in Excel of sum, average, max, min, and count. So here in this activity, using the numbers on the screen from what we had, these particular numbers, so these numbers, what would you expect the average of C3 through C7 to be? Well, you could actually recreate the Excel spreadsheet and put a cell somewhere that says exactly this, and you can get it. Or you can try and anticipate that without doing the Excel. My suggestion is to do it both ways to make sure the answer makes sense. Count, don't worry about this one too much for now, but what I'll mention is count gives you a 1 if a cell has something in it and a 0 if it doesn't. And by something, I generally mean a number. So again, don't focus on that one too much. If you skip number 4, that's perfectly fine. If we need it later, we'll discuss it then. But the rest of them, average gives you an average. Sum we've already used. Max gives you the largest from a window. Minimum gives you the smallest from a window. So there's a couple more charts in here that they ask you to recreate using the table, the chart that we've been doing today. I'm not going to do all of these, but I will do this one more. So I would ask you to try and recreate these 2 labels. One of them's good, one of them's bad. I said labels, didn't I? Charts, excuse me. This chart on the left is good. So this isn't looking at all 5 categories. It's a pie chart, excuse me, of just the soda, the 3 concerts. But this one includes the total. And you can see that it doesn't make sense because it included the total. They hovered over too much. They included too much in it. Because this says that soda sales were 50% and then the total sales were 50%. But the total is part of the individuals. So the left is good, the right is bad. So let's just make one more chart. We want to create this one, this bar chart that's not stacked, but it still shows the 3 different categories just independent of concert 1, concert 2, and concert 3. And we're not going to make it look exactly like that with all the the dots, the polka dots, and the stripes and everything. The reason they do it this way is because these things print out in black and white, and it makes it a little easier to read in black and white. So going back to our Excel file. So let's see if we can get this right. We got concert 1 through 3 labeled. Just move everything else to the side. And we probably need the soda and water and popcorn and cookie and hot dog named as well. So we probably have those highlighted, but this still isn't good enough because we need the concerts in there as well. Now, if I only highlight this, we can edit the horizontal axis as we just talked about earlier and I type in the concert 1 through 3 or, click and drag as we just saw. But I can get it right on the first try by highlighting this entire section. Then we go to insert. We want to do a bar chart. We want the vertical one. Now we don't want it stacked. This would be a stack chart where they're all on one bar for each item. We want it like this where they're separated. Again, maybe your boss wants it to look like this, maybe he wants it to look the other way, or maybe you think your boss wants it to look one way or the other. Sometimes it's not what your boss wants, it's you trying to guess and hope for the best. So the only thing that looks bad about this is the chart title should say concert revenue, probably. Yeah, concert revenue. So what I just did there was I accidentally deleted it, and I did it intentionally. I said accidentally, but I quote accidentally deleted it. So guess what we do? We hit undo. So make sure you're double clicking so that you're typing in there, then backspace. See, if I'd only single clicked, it deletes it. Concert. Don't hit enter. That one was a mistake on my part, so I backspaced, click away. And that looks pretty good. You just kind of compare the two. This time it even gave a better 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 range, probably because there's more data selected. Sometimes they do a better job labeling those or incrementing them, but that is something else that can be edited, but that's something we'll save for another day. So that is all I wanted to do. Like I said, on your own, these are very similar to what we did with the pie chart. So I would like you to create this one. If you don't want to create the wrong one, that's fine, as long as you know how to create the right one, but it's not something I'm asking you to submit. We did this one, we did this, everything else is pretty good. This question 5 in particular is about that wrong pie chart that we were just talking about. When you get to these more general questions, these reflections, again, you can put sentences, paragraphs, words, 1 word, 2 words, whatever. Skip it, that's up to you unless I tell you it's part of a group discussion. The main emphasis for this guided worksheet is the questions 1 through 5, 1 through 8 in the different sections. 1 through, how many were here? 7, another 8. So it's like 21 questions, most of which are pretty easy, all of which I've pretty much given to you in a recorded format that you can repeat on YouTube and come back to.
And on that note, we're gonna go ahead and go. I know I ended up taking an extra minute or 2 of your time. As I let you know ahead of time, I am sorry for that. It will not happen again. This is the only day it has to happen. It's just I had so much to cover and I didn't want to save any of this. So remember, your main responsibilities are that quiz 1 due by the 1st, and then submitting the file where you did everything we did, everything up until the end of that file. Make sure you submit that in Canvas, again, by the 3rd. And then all the other minor details as well. Catch those YouTube replays, and we will see you next week. Have a great weekend and a good holiday as well. Take care, everybody.